Recording progress. Recording. So welcome everyone to Breslov Lunchtime Learning, and we want to thank Dr. Eleanor Gudis for sponsoring these parsha classes, and may it be a source of merit for her and her family as we talk about the Torah and spread the teachings of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. Okay, so this week's parsha is quite a packed, exciting roller coaster ride, kind of like last week's parsha, maybe even more so. One of the most difficult passages in all of Chumash, all of Torah, especially I've found for women, is the binding of Yitzchak, the Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, which we will get to, God willing, later today. Okay, so we're going to start with the opening of parsha, with the opening of the parsha, in which Avraham has had his circumcision, and on the third day, at the age of 99, in the desert heat, all of a sudden, 3 guests show up. This is a 99-year-old man who circumcised himself. We are told, some commentaries say he circumcised Yishmael the same day, and he was 13. And all of a sudden, guests show up. And Avraham ran to welcome these guests. These guests were angels, okay? And the 3 angels were there for a variety of reasons. Avraham slaughtered 3 calves to feed them and served them tongue with mustard. That's what the Midrash says, okay? That's what all the commentary says. And he asked Sarah to make bread for them, and he told them, I'm going to serve you some bread. Come in, wash the dust of the desert off your feet, because he thought maybe they were wandering nomads of that time who worshiped everything, including the dust on their feet. So he went into the tent to prepare, and so did Sarah. Now, the commentaries tell us, the Midrash tells us, that there were 2 main reasons that the angels came for this particular time to sit and eat with Avraham. The first reason was a mitzvah, bikur cholim, visiting the sick, helping the sick, consoling the sick. And this particular mitzvah was the mitzvah that the angels did. Okay, we didn't necessarily know that angels could do specific mitzvahs, but it's there to teach us about the importance of this mitzvah. And this mitzvah, bikur cholim, is a mitzvah upon which everyone benefits. Bikur cholim, visiting the sick, we benefit the sick person. Hopefully we don't overextend our visit, but we do enough to cheer them up, to bring them something that they might possibly need, to put them in a better mood, maybe to advocate for them with a doctor or something, whatever. And we benefit when we visit a sick person because the Shekhinah, okay, the feminine indwelling aspect of Hashem that's in exile along with all of us, rests on the bed or above the bed of the sick person. So when we go to the sick person and we talk to them and then they fall asleep because they're comforted by our visit, and we sit and we say Psalms, we are having an incredibly holy experience, almost like being at the Kotel, the Western Wall, okay? So if this opportunity comes to visit a sick person, whether they're at home or in the hospital, don't shy away. And there are other ways to do this mitzvah, sometimes a phone call, a Zoom call, depending on the circumstances today. those are also mitzvahs. I don't know if the Shekhinah counts over the phone or the Zoom. I'm not sure. We know that a bracha heard over Zoom or a phone, it's questionable whether your amen counts, whether the bracha counts for the listener. It doesn't matter. It's a mitzvah, and it's also a very good act of kindness. Okay. The second reason why we are told about this incident in the parsha, according to the Midrash, is the enormous mitzvah of hachnasas orchim, welcoming and escorting the guests, hosting guests, inviting guests. And Rebbe Nachman, on his daughter Sarah's wedding day, she spoke to him, and he had really emphasized to her the importance of this particular mitzvah, hosting guests, hosting regular guests, hosting Torah scholars, hosting people in your home, welcoming them, really treating them well. And he said, listen, this is a very important mitzvah. And she said, Tati, Abba, to Rebbe Nachman, she said, I want to do this mitzvah, but I'm afraid I can't do it right. I'm afraid I don't have the das, the ability, the material ability to do this mitzvah to perfection. And Rebbe Nachman told her, he said, don't worry about it. It's not to perfection. He said, what is a guest? All you have to do is put another piece of bread on the table and pull up another chair. And that's it. Okay. If that's what you can do, that's fine. Welcome the guest with your heart. Welcome the guest with joy, and you will be doing the mitzvah in the way that Hashem intended. So, as we mentioned last week, Avraham and Sarah were known for this mitzvah. They kept the doors of their tents open. They say Avraham kept his tent open on all four sides so that people coming from all four directions could come and see that here was a place they would be welcomed. And as I mentioned last time, people would come and Avraham would feed them, and they would want to thank him or pay him. And Avraham said, no. He said, just thank the one who created everything, Hashem. And in this way, he brought people closer to Hashem. Okay. I'm just checking something briefly. Sorry. Okay. So those are the two reasons, says the Midrash, why the Torah shows us that particular event. There are many more reasons. For example, I'll give you another one. The three angels who visit Avraham are treated exceptionally by him. And the first thing he does, they say that it was Pesach, it was Passover. And the first thing he does is he asks Sarah, please get some dough and make them a cake or a bread. Some say it was a matzah. Okay. And he will take questions at the end. I see someone's hand is raised. Okay. So he serves them the bread first, and later he gives them milk and butter, and then he brings them out these tongues. Okay, very big delicacy. Okay, and he brings them out the tongue with mustard. And the Midrash tells us also something amazing. Okay, the Midrash tells us also something amazing. He promises a little bit, a piece of bread, a piece of matzah, but he delivers a lot. This is the mark of a tzaddik, not only a tzaddik like Rebbe Nachman, but whoever's not muted, please mute yourself. Or Charlene, can you mute them? Okay, I did it. I got it. Okay. So whoever, I'm sorry, I was distracted by the noise. Okay. So whoever is a righteous person doesn't promise more than they can deliver. As a matter of fact, they promise less. And they don't even promise. We have a concept of not making a neder a vow, okay? We have a concept of not making a promise which is considered a neder or a vow. So when a person says, oh, I'm going to be there at noon, it's a good idea to say, Ezras Hashem, with Hashem's help, Mirza Hashem, God willing, or just God willing, or that's my plan to be there at noon, let's see what happens. Not because we want to be overly concerned with, okay, everybody understands we make a mistake, we go in one direction, we mean to go in another, but because with our lips, we create all kinds of realities. And when we make even an implied promise, this has the status of a vow, of a neder. How much so? Okay, we can debate the details, but we want to get in the habit of understanding the power of our speech. Any of you who've studied Rebbe Nachman's teachings, whether with me or other teachers, knows that our speech literally has an effect on everything. It has an effect on our thoughts, just as our thoughts have an effect on our speech. It has a tremendous effect on other people. We have to be careful. Okay. So, you know, the phrase walking on eggshells, I'm sure you've all heard that phrase. Okay, we don't necessarily want to walk around in tremendous fear, walking on eggshells, but we do want to be cautious. We don't want to raise false hope in people. So if you promise something to someone, come through or qualify your promise with a big, with Hashem's help. If Hashem wills it, I'll do my best. Okay. So that's another reason for the angel's visit. Now, I want to also, let me just see what page this is on. Okay. Also in this parsha, after the angels get done, they're told really by Hashem to reward Avraham and Sarah, who are childless, okay? And the angels, one of the angels speaks in the first person, not because we want to confuse him as a source of the blessing, but because he was a shaliach from Hashem. So he was able to say, as some of the later prophets were not, some were, I will give, okay, because he was an agent of God. So he spoke as if God was speaking through him because Hashem was, in a way, different than a prophet. And the angel said to him, where's Sarah, your wife? And Abraham said, in the tent. And the angel said, I'm going to return to you next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son. And then a very famous passage, Sarah was listening behind him. And at this point, Avraham gasped and said, Avraham v'Sarah zekanim ba'im ba'yamim. Okay, Avraham gasped, and the Torah tells us, excuse me, he didn't say, that Avraham and Sarah were old. They were zekanim. They were well on in years. Ba'im ba'yamim. Okay, what does ba'im ba'yamim mean? So the Zohar tells us something amazing, that ba'im ba'yamim literally means they came with days. Ba is to come, ba'im yamim, with days. Okay, yes, it does mean well on in years, but the literal translation, that's sort of the colloquial translation, well on in years. So what does this mean? They came with days. So this shows us, says the Zohar, that Avraham and Sarah, the great prophetess, were extremely aware of Hashem, and they packed their days with goodness, with mitzvahs, with good deeds. They packed their days with Torah, and specifically the Zohar says they didn't postpone tomorrow for tomorrow what they could do today, as long as it was a mitzvah. Okay. When it's getting your nails done, okay, you can postpone it. But when it's a mitzvah, we don't postpone. In this day and age, when everybody's so rushed and we find ourselves almost crushed sometimes, we have no time in the day. We're running. And if you're not running, you have internal pressures. So everybody has it externally or internally or both. What happens is we find that this quality can push us to postpone the things that really deserve our attention, which are, of course, prayer, giving tzedakah, being kind to others, do whatever the mitzvah is, okay? And Rebbe Nachman tells us, he cautions us. He says, if a mitzvah comes your way, grab it. Okay, don't say, maybe I'll get to it later. He actually says, if even the good thought about coming closer to Hashem comes to your mind, don't say, oh, very nice, I had a good thought. Oh, I had a good thought. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to really concentrate on my prayers today. I'm really going to try to say the whole davening. I'm not going to skip all the parts I usually skip, or I've got to give tzedakah. Let me do that right now. And then Rebbe Nachman says, we all have the habit. We all get into this habit where we say, oh, right, I'll get to it later. Now, at a certain point in time, for some of us who are over a certain age, we say, I can write it down on a list. So I really am busy, but I'm going to write it on a list. Okay. So that is our security blanket that we're really going to accomplish that mitzvah. What I find, I'm going to share with you what happens to me personally. I mean, you're running, you have to do this, you have to do that. What happens to me personally is I make the list, and it's a little messy because my handwriting's horrible. So, and I don't want to type a list necessarily. So I make a list, and then I rewrite the list because the paper got worn out or I can't quite read it. And then I read it, and then I put it in my drawer with my other lists. And yes, I may get to it, and probably I will, but the mitzvah has lost some of its luster because the Rebbe tells us Hashem wants the heart. We can all do a mitzvah. We understand this. Wherever you are, we can all do a mitzvah, but it can lose some of its luster if we let it sit. It goes a little stale. And Rebbe Nachman says, most likely we'll just forget about it. So this expression, ba'im bayamim, is to show us to grab a hold of those days. Grab a hold, pack them up with goodness. Now, for sure, Avraham and Sarah woke up every morning thinking about Hashem, what their tafkid was, what their tachlis was, what their purpose was. They began to think from the second they woke up in the morning. They were tzaddikim, but we're also tzaddikim, all of us. We're all potentially, and even more than potentially, we all have true moments where we are tzaddikim. Every one of you has a moment like this, or two, or three. And yet we find it difficult to bind ourselves all day long to Hashem. What's the secret? So one of the secrets we know from Avraham was his emunah, his faith. Another secret was his chesed, his loving kindness. He had tremendous faith and awareness of Hashem. He had so much kindness. Avraham represents the sephira of loving kindness, the sephira of giving and goodness and love. And he also had simcha. We know we don't hear a lot of complaints from Avraham. We really don't. we do hear him being a little self-deprecating, as in this incident that we're discussing, where the angels came to him and the angel said, we're gonna give you, you're gonna have a baby in 1 year, you and Sarah. Okay, we understand that, but we don't see him complaining. Especially, we have to remember Avraham had 10 tests. We're going to discuss a couple of them today. Avraham had 10 massive tests in life, each one more progressively difficult than the others. Okay, if this was a little more text-based, we'd go over each one and compare them, but suffice it to say, Google it, look it up, pull out your Chumash. It's really worth understanding what his 10 trials were, because they all dealt with a different aspect of his personality, of his soul ability, of his intellectual ability, of his emotions. For us, we are also tested. Now, we may not have these dramatic tests like Avraham. I mentioned the Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Yitzchak. We may not have that dramatic test, okay? But we all have tests. And if we tap into our power and we tap into our personal faith in Hashem, that we're here for a reason, we are, in a way, okay, as essential to the story of the world as Avraham was. Actually, we really are, because the world wouldn't be the same without you or me. It just wouldn't. We have to believe that. And when we start to believe that, it fills us with two things. It fills us with a sense of responsibility, for sure. Oh, well, the world wouldn't be the same without me, just as it wouldn't be without other people, but without me, I have something important to contribute. And it fills us with a sense of simcha. Look, Hashem created me. He gave me this life. He gave me something beautiful and powerful and wonderful to discover about myself, just as Avraham discovered about himself and Sarah about herself. Yes, they were talking to Hashem. Yes, they had angels visiting them. I haven't had any angels visiting me lately, yet I still believe that I have a vital importance in this world, just as each one of us does. And that belief, that faith, and that joy, and that responsibility, all are part of the whole. Now, Rebbe Nachman said that a kind of atheism would be coming into the world, a flood of atheism would be coming into the world before Mashiach, okay, which we are in the times right before Mashiach is revealed. And this type of atheism or lack of faith isn't just a lack of faith in Hashem. It's also a lack of faith in ourselves. We must believe in ourselves. When a person truly believes in themselves, what they're believing in isn't, oh, I'm so talented, I'm so beautiful, I'm so popular, whatever, I'm a genius. No. What they're believing in is, I have this precious divine neshama, and my value, my true inherent innate value is this neshama that was given to me by Hashem and that is still connected to Hashem. And this is what I call holy self-esteem. And this is what Avraham and Sarah had, as they say, in spades. They had tons of it, tons and tons and tons of it, because even though they were humble, they understood they had a purpose. Okay. So this is one of the messages that Avraham and Sarah teach us, and it's an important lesson. It really is, because it's essential. And I don't know, I can tell you, I don't know that we can hear that message too much. We all need that from time to time, reassurance to remind ourselves how absolutely important that message is. Okay, now, Avraham, okay, just get to safer here. One second. Oh, okay. Now we're going to talk about Sodom. Okay. Sodom and Gomorrah, but Sodom we're going to talk about. And we are going to talk about why this incident comes immediately after the incident in which the angel told Avraham, or Hashem, the angel acting as an agent, told Avraham they would have a baby in 1 year. We know Sarah laughed. Well, that stuff is you're probably all familiar with. So why does Sodom come right after the incident with Avraham? Because the Torah is showing us, Hashem is showing us how to be, how to have hachnasas orchim, kindness, so on, generosity, to be focused on purpose, to be happy, to have faith. And then he shows us Sodom as a contrast. So let's learn a little bit about Sodom, because what we have to understand why Sodom, or Sodom, as we say in English, what really was going on there. Okay, so let me get. So there were 5 cities that were wicked: Sodom, Amorah, Admah, Zvoim, and Zoar. Okay, and it's very interesting. I just want to share this with you because I enjoy etymology and language. Amorah is what we say in English, Gomorrah. And we find that today, okay, we will use, let's say, the Arab names for things, which was Gaza, okay, Gomorrah, okay, rather than Aza and Amorah. And that's because the sound really isn't in between. It is a sound. It's a guttural sound, okay, which I'm not going to pronounce, but it's just kind of interesting. So sometimes when you see words or place names, especially in Hebrew, that are a hard G sound to us, that's because they are using the Arab name rather than the original Hebrew name. Okay, so we're getting to these 5 cities. So what we find is that meanwhile, Hashem decrees the annihilation of Sodom. Why? So what was wrong with those cities? So let's talk about Sodom. The people, it's true, they were murderers, they were adulterers, and they engaged in the act for which Sodom is famous. However, there was more. They were compared to the generation before the flood, and their reasons for this rebellion were also similar. So in the generation before the flood, which we just spoke about a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, the generation before the flood had everything. All their needs were met. The climate was beautiful. It was like being at a Club Med year round. And that kind of ease corrupted them. And the commentators tell us here, okay, that the people of Sodom were extremely wealthy. The area of the land was very fertile. They possessed tremendous resources of gold, silver, and precious stones. And they say that when somebody from Sodom would go to pull a vegetable out of his vegetable plot, gold would be right underneath it, lumps of gold. And so they had a tremendous surplus. And instead of being gracious about it and showing gratitude for Hashem, look at Hashem, look what Hashem gave us, all this wealth, okay? Instead, it says they trusted in their wealth and cast off Hashem's rulership. We find this many times in the Torah. We find this in the generation before the flood, where they forgot about Hashem. We find this in the generation of of Babel, of the Tower of Babel, right? Okay, they wanted to forcefully conquer Hashem, and we're finding it here. So they had more. qualities, really important, that really contrast with the Hachnasas Orchim of Avraham and Sarah. Okay, the hospitality to guests of Avraham and Sarah. One of the main things for which they were known, as much as anything else, from a Torah perspective, this is often the ones that the commentators speak about. They wouldn't allow strangers, guests, into their region. They didn't want them in their country, okay? They guarded their possessions vehemently. As a matter of fact, they were so stingy and selfish that if a tree was growing on public property, the Midrash tells us they would clip off the fruit so the birds shouldn't have any free fruit. It's crazy, right? Also, they had laws. This was their system of justice. Any stranger found in the area was immediately robbed of his money and mistreated. Another law, it was the duty of a judge from Sodom to ensure that anybody who wandered through the town, guests, non-guests, or in the area, left penniless. It was a law, okay? Also, anyone giving food to a pauper, a poor person, or a stranger, was put to death. There was a death penalty. And anyone who invited strangers to a simcha, such as a wedding, would be punished by having the clothes ripped off his body. It sounds like it's unbelievable. And it sounds like, how does this psychology work? Okay, I know nobody here would ever think like this or feel this way, but something in this is a caution to all of us. Really what it is it's showing when we take belief in our own abilities. I'm not talking about self-esteem, I'm talking about our own abilities, our own earning power, our own money, okay? And Hashem does have, the Torah has the concept of ownership. But when we take belief of that to its illogical extreme, we end up with Sodom. Okay. So where we are personally on that continuum, something to be looked at. Okay. Do I really believe that I earn everything on my own, from my own hard work and my own merit? Or do I understand that I do the hishtadlus, I do the actions that are necessary, I'm required to work, so on and so forth, but it's really Hashem who sends the bounty. It's really Hashem who determines the outcome. This concept isn't something that's so black and white. For most of us, we're somewhere in the middle, more to one side than the other, because we don't have constant dot. We don't have constant holy awareness. And we slip in and out of this kind of thinking and this consciousness. Okay. Most of us can say, I won the lottery. I mean, I don't know, most of us can say that. I can't say that. But let's say, I won the lottery. Thank God, it's a gift from Hashem. Then what happens 2 months later? Oh, well, I'm going to spend my money on this, and I'm going to spend my money on that. Okay. This is what happens in a nutshell. So for each of us to understand that Hashem gives us our money, it could be a lot, it could be a little, whatever it is, he gives it for us to do mitzvahs. And because Sodom in the Torah, most of the commentators, whether in the Talmud or the Midrash or whatever, is most famously known not for what the Gentile world says, which is the sexual sins. I mean, yes, that was important, but they're known for their greed and stinginess and possessiveness and not wanting to share. Okay, yes, this is mine. An inability to give. Now, Rebbe Nachman tells us a few amazing things. So first of all, I want to really clarify, the concept of ownership is there. Hashem gives us this concept of ownership in the Torah. But we also have to remember that it's Hashem who gives it. And when we understand that Hashem gives, we understand there's a higher purpose. So just as Hashem may give you a musical talent, okay, or may give you the ability to write beautifully, or may give you whatever it is he gives you, a home full of tzaddikim for children. Please God, you should have that, right? Whatever it is, it's the same with our accumulations, our wealth, and so on. It's a purpose. It's not there for no reason. Doesn't mean, by the way, that we don't spend it on life's pleasures as well. We want to enjoy life. And Rebbe Nachman doesn't want us to be acidic. He doesn't want us to walk around in a state of deprivation. At the same time, we have to remember there's always a higher purpose for everything we have. The tzaddikim would, when they made hitbodedut, there were famous tzaddikim in Breslov and also not in Breslov. When they talked with Hashem in their own words, the tzaddikim would sometimes talk to their body parts. One person in particular was famous for this, one chassid. And he would say, my hand, did you do Hashem's will today? My right hand, did you do Hashem's will today and give? My left hand, did you do Hashem's will today and exercise restraint? And my dear nose, were you able to breathe in patience and kindness and not anger? Okay. Did you make a bracha? Did you make a blessing on the spices you smelled today or the rose that you stopped to sniff today? Because when we get down to it, we see that there are the things we own and that surround us and that we live in. And then we get closer and we get to our bodies and we see that those have a purpose too. Each part of our body has a holy purpose. Every part of our body has a holy purpose. We may not know the holy purpose, just as the doctors 20 years ago said the appendix has no purpose. It's a vestigial organ. No, it's not. We know now that it has very important purposes. But we also have to understand there's no vestigial with Hashem. There's no accidental extras with Hashem. Everything is complete. You are complete with your abilities and your disabilities. Okay. So your abilities have a purpose. Your disabilities have a purpose. Your wealth has a purpose. Your poverty has a purpose. Every item you own has a purpose. We're going to, in upcoming parshas, we're going to find out something very interesting about tzaddikim and the things they own, okay, and why that's important. So this idea is Sodom was corrupt, and the expressions of their corruption were legion. Now, Lot, okay, can you remember Lot, Abraham's nephew, lived in Sodom. He chose to go there. He could have gone anywhere. He chose to go there because it was a rich area. And we know the story, okay? I don't want to tell the story we all know about the angels coming to Lot's house, and they were testing him too, and they were guests, and what happened. And Hashem says, because of this incident, because the people of Sodom wanted to tear Lot and his family alive, okay, for hosting guests, okay, forgiving of themselves. Hashem decided to destroy Sodom. Now, Avraham heard about it and he prayed to Hashem, please don't destroy Sodom. 1 second, let me find, I want to find a source for you. And he went through, probably familiar that he went through, I'm assuming that most of you have basic literacy with the parsha. And if not, please read the parsha every week. It doesn't take so long. You can read it on Shabbat, you can read one aliyah a day. Familiarize yourself with the simple meaning of the parsha because it's very instructive and it's a very compelling narrative that is written for each of us. So anyway, Avraham desired to speak to Hashem and he desired to pray to him And he said, behold, I desire to speak to Hashem because I am afar ve'efer. Though I am afar ve'efer, dust and ashes. Even though I'm dust and ashes, I desire to speak to Hashem. Hashem, listen to me even though I'm nothing. I'm dust and I'm ashes. So why dust and ashes? Why that analogy? Why didn't he just say, Hashem, I'm nothing? I'm just one simple person and you are the great Hashem, but please listen to me. I want to ask you, please, to save my nephew and to save Sodom. There may be some righteous people there. So Rebbe Nachman explains that in order for us to pray properly, we need both the quality of dust and ashes, each of us, in order to pray properly. Not only to have our prayers answered, but in order to feel that click. You know that click when you really are in the flow in prayer. It may happen every day if you're so fortunate. It may happen once a month. It may happen in a crisis. Whatever it is, there's a click. Part of attaining that is this feeling that I am dust. What is that feeling? Humility. That's all. I'm humble. That's what Rebbe Nachman says. But there's another meaning. It also means that we are able to connect ourselves to the tzaddikim who have died and are resting in the dust. Whether that tzaddik is Avraham, whether that tzaddik is Rebbe Nachman, we understand the importance of the tzaddikim in our lives. And we understand that they're resting in the dust. They've left this world. And we're connected to them too. We're connected to their teachings. It's essential that we are connected to the teachings of the tzaddikim. Okay, we must have a tzaddik in our lives. So that's the quality of dust in our prayer. What's the quality of efer, ashes? That's the quality that corresponds to overcoming one's negative inclinations, okay? One's midos, one's traits or midot that we wish we didn't have. Why ashes? So we want those traits, which sometimes feel like fire, they're so compelling, to be burned up by the fire of our love for Hashem, the fire of our faith, the fire of our trust in the tzaddikim. Both these qualities help us get through our prayers. We're all looking for segulas. We're all looking to say something, to do something that can help us. There's some wonderful segulas, some wonderful segulot. Okay, there's really ones that have tremendous power, they're time honored. But to really, really have them work, we have to connect to this idea of humility. We have to connect to this idea that we are connected to the tzaddikim. We appreciate that they're here. And we have to connect to this idea that we do our best to overcome those negative things we all have about us. Okay. All right, let's continue. Lot and his daughters, I'm going to skip because we don't have time. If we have time, I'll get to it. It's really a fascinating incident because it describes the roots of Mashiach. Okay, maybe I'll do a mini lesson about it instead. Okay, because I really want to get to Yitzchak's birth. Yay, happy birthday. Okay, Sarah bore the son Yitzchak at 90. And everyone was happy because the whole world experienced miracles when Yitzchak was born. So it wasn't just Sarah and Avraham who were ecstatic, okay? It was the whole world. And I'm going to just briefly tell you, and you can see, by the way, I have to mention this. I really don't want to go there, but it is important because I know we have a couple of people who listen on YouTube, who have written to me, who are coming out of another religion. Okay, it's important to see where a lot of the ideas of other religions get taken from. They get taken from us, our Torah. Torah that Hashem gave to us and we accepted. I just want you to know that. Okay. So an abundance of miraculous brachot descended upon the whole world. Okay. Barren women conceived, blind people regained their eyesight, and all of a sudden people who had, let's say, mental disabilities regained their intelligence. Okay. And the whole world was blessed on account of Sarah saying, whoever hears about this birth will rejoice. Because when a prophet or a prophetess speaks, Hashem fulfills the decree. Hashem fulfills the decree. Excuse me. When it's tzaddik or tzaddikah speaks, Hashem fulfills the decree. Okay. So everybody was just ecstatic, the whole entire world. Now, Sarah, okay, probably know this if you've learned the parsha. Sarah was attacked by some people who said, oh, that's not really your child, you snuck in a baby. I mean, she was 90 years old, but in order to disprove them, a few things happened. First, her hair turned black. Her gray hair turned black. I'm assuming that was just a little bit showing that people saw that she showed to the women. And also, she was blessed with a tremendous amount of milk. And what happened was people came from all around because their milk had dried up. And they came to Sarah to ask her for help. And she nursed everybody's babies. And that stopped the rumors. Now, is that literal? Let's talk a little bit about the Midrash. The Midrash holds deep Kabbalistic secrets. The stories can be taken pshat, literally, but also we understand that there's deep, deep, deep secrets buried in the Midrash, or hidden, I shouldn't say buried, I should say hidden in the Midrash. And we can understand from this that a tzaddik, or a tzaddikis in this case, tzaddikah, nourishes the world. Okay. So we have this beautiful example of a female tzaddik nourishing the whole world. It's not just the male tzaddikim. Okay. All right. Now, excuse me 1 minute. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So Yitzchak was the first child born Jewish. Okay. He was the first child to have a Brit Milah at the right time. Rebbe Nachman says, why was he called Yitzchak? Now we know that Sarah named him Yitzchak because she laughed and Avraham laughed. Schok, okay, is laughter. So that's the simple understanding. But Rebbe Nachman explains, he was called Yitzchak because the holiness of the Jewish nation depends on their joy when doing mitzvahs and in their service of Hashem. And so the Rebbe wants us to understand that our joy comes from the mitzvot, connecting to Hashem, being joyful, saying joy is a choice, happiness is a choice. And Yitzchak, because he was the first child born Jewish, okay, that he embodied this concept of simcha, of joy, of chedva, of delight. It's very interesting because he also represented the sphera of Gevura, which is the sphera of strength and restraint and even seriousness. Very interesting. Judgment. How could that be? It's another angle to this, is that even this restraint in Judaism is with joy. Okay. It's not just the chesed and the giving with joy. The holding back is with joy too. Okay. Because when you're maintaining with your connection with Hashem, whether you're giving or whether you're restraining, okay, when you maintain that connection with Hashem, the joy is your baseline. Very important. very important message of this parsha, big takeaway. Okay, joy. All right, we're going to continue. I do want to get a few more things in. Okay, now we know what happens next. This thing that happens next is the 9th trial of Avraham, and the 10th one is the Akedat Yitzchak. But the 9th trial of Avraham is this, and I really want to tell the story. Okay. As the Midrash says, Yishmael, Yitzchak's older brother, wasn't happy about his birth. He was very jealous, and when he heard that Yitzchak was considered the firstborn son and was going to receive the double portion of inheritance, which is Jewish law, the firstborn son receives that, the Bechor receives that. He said, that's ridiculous. I'm the firstborn son. But he was born from Hagar, the Egyptian maidservant, who was Paro's daughter, which we learned last week. And after Yitzchak was born, people began to refer to him as Hagar's son, not Avraham's son. He lost some of this kavod. Now, can we look at it from our eyes today and understand, just on simple human terms, the resentment that was there? The resentment was there so much that the Muslims, when they rewrote the story, because they rewrote our Torah, when they rewrote the story, they flipped it around that Yitzchak was in Yishmael's place, and Yitzchak and Yishmael was Abraham's son, the legitimate firstborn son. Okay. So there was a resentment. On a very human level, there was a resentment. At the same time, it shows us that Yishmael didn't inherit that full holy awareness of God in the same way that Avraham had it, Sarah had it, Sarah wasn't his mother. And he didn't understand his purpose. Okay. So we can, on a human level, we can say, okay, he was resentful. But he also didn't understand his purpose. He didn't understand his role, and he had an important role. Okay. And this is a lesson to all of us. Resentment, jealousy. Okay. There isn't anyone who has at one point or another in their lives felt that pang. Jealousy and resentment combined, one separate, usually they're combined. They have, I don't have. How come she had, I don't have. How come I got this? Oh, I have so much suffering, they don't have suffering. My life's harder. Okay. How come, whatever. If we go down that path, chas v'shalom, God forbid we should go down that path, we end up with a Yishmael consciousness. Nobody here is going to go all the way down that path, but maybe sometimes we step a little bit on that path. That's the Yishmael consciousness, that jealousy. Okay, we also, later on, we're going to have the Esav consciousness, and also is rooted also in resentment and jealousy. When we know who we really are, and we understand the unique gifts that we have, the importance that we as individuals bring to the world with our own unique talents and gifts that God gave us, our own neshamas, our own paths, and everyone else also has their own unique gifts. When we truly believe this and truly believe in Hashem, jealousy and resentment disappear. They evaporate. This is something to really take a hold of. To delight in what you've been given. And if you're not sure what you've been given, make hitbodedut, talk to Hashem in your own words every day, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever you can do. The ideal time is an hour. 5 minutes is okay to start and talk this out with Hashem. Hashem, I feel I got a bum rap, but I know there's some good in here that I need to look at. Help me uncover it. Help me uncover the gift of myself. Okay. Yishmael couldn't do that. He didn't want to do that. When he was 15 years old, he began to worship idols in the home. Okay. He was extremely immoral. Okay. He did all kinds of immoral acts. He shot arrows at Yitzchak, pretending he was shooting birds. I mean, these are lethal arrows. Okay. Luckily, he was a good shot. He didn't quite get him. And Sarah, through prophecy, said, you've got to get rid of him. He can't stay here. He's going to hurt and or negatively influence Yitzchak. Any mother, okay, any mother can feel this conflict. Okay, just put yourself in Sarah's shoes. Okay, put yourself in Hagar's shoes. This isn't an easy parsha. It's just not an easy parsha. Okay, we haven't even gotten to the binding of Isaac yet. We might not have time. Okay, so really, Avraham didn't want to listen to her. This was really, now at this point, this was his hardest test until the binding of Yitzchak. He didn't want to listen to her. And Hashem said, I'm sorry. You have to listen to Sarah. She knows better than you. She's right. Can you imagine kicking your son out? Especially because we don't know that Avraham saw everything that was going on. In the same way, Yitzchak, when he was older, we're not sure he saw everything that was going on. Okay, on a human level. So anyway, he carried Yishmael out, sent along bread and water, and Avraham admonished Hagar to remain loyal to Hashem. That sounds harsh, but we have to understand that there was prophecy there, and he did what was told. So we can understand that sometimes, okay, we have to be cruel to be kind, as the expression goes. There are some times where we see something. I feel like crying every time I read this, but yeah, I mean, of course he had to kick him out. But it still brings up a lot of emotions because you're kicking out your son, okay? But he had to be cruel to be kind because Yishmael had made choices. And the choices that he made were very corrupt. And no matter how much he lived in the home of Avraham, the tzaddik, and Sarah, we know that he was influenced a lot by Hagar, who, even though she had accepted Avraham's ways, the second she was out of his sight, she reverted back to idolatry and idol worship. She didn't take his admonishment to heart. So we have this difficult passage. Okay, now, I do want to get to a little bit of Akedat Yitzchak, so we're going to run over. If anybody has to leave, I'm sorry. You'll catch it later, hopefully on YouTube, but I just think it's too important. Okay. So the 10th of the 10th trial, we're going to skip a whole bunch, and we're going to get to the Akedat Yitzchak. So we know that the binding of Isaac is another one of those that just, as a human being, as one human being to another, wow, okay. But we also understand there's deeper purposes. We weren't at the level of Avraham or Sarah or even Yitzchak. So we don't quite understand their thought processes, their psychospiritual processes, and so on. So let's go. We'll just do a little overview. So Hashem said, take your son, your only son, the one you love, Yitzchak. He had to like really clarify which son. Go to the land, okay. Go to the land of Moriah, which I will show you, and offer him as a sacrifice on one of the mountains, and I'll tell you which mountain that is. I'll let you know when you get there. Okay, you have to pass the bill in order to know what's in it. Okay, but okay, We don't have to have faith in our politicians, but we do have to have faith in Hashem. So when Hashem says, I'll let you know, you say, okay, Hashem, it's hard. I want to know now, but okay, Hashem. So why didn't, this is a very beautiful lesson to us. Why didn't Hashem tell Avraham immediately which mountain he should ascend? So Rashi tells us, brother of the Torah, Rashi, he tells us, this is Hashem's way. He momentarily withholds information from tzaddikim and afterwards reveals it to them. This increases their schar, their reward. Okay, what does that mean? So Reb Noson explains that Hashem works this way with each of us. He hides himself. He hides events. He hides himself. He hides reasons from all of us in order to encourage us to seek and search for him. Then after we find Hashem through our own efforts, we make the effort, he's going to tell us what really he wants from us, or he's going to reveal to us what we need to be revealed to us. In other words, there's something beneficial for us. Remember, Hashem doesn't need anything. We can't benefit him, okay? There's something beneficial for us in this whole process of having things withheld, whether it's information, whether it's blessings, chas v'shalom, I don't want blessings to be withheld from anyone, but whatever it is, anything that's withheld from us has a potential to cause us some kind of suffering, minor suffering, or God forbid, major suffering. When we have something withheld from us, whatever it is, whether it's, again, information or something very, very important, the entire reason, rest assured, is so that we will seek Hashem and turn to him. Tzaddikim say, the Chachamim say, the entire reason for all lack, for all suffering, is in order that we should be inspired to turn to Hashem. So Avraham demonstrates this. He wakes early in the morning. He saddles his donkey. They say that he took two men with him. They say that was Eliezer and Yishmael, who had done tshuva or came back. There's debate about that. And Avraham sees the place from a distance where Hashem wants him to go. Okay. And the place that he wanted him to go was the place where the Beit HaMikdash would be in the future. Okay, that's the mountain. So when you go to the Kotel and look up, that's what we're looking at. It's quite amazing, isn't it? And Hashem told him there, don't slaughter Yitzchak. Now, I just want to tell you one thing, because somebody asked me this question. I promised I would answer it without a promise, without a vow, but I said I would answer it. And that is that Yitzchak wasn't a little baby. He was 37 years old. Okay. And it is said he was willing to do this. Okay. We know what happened. Hashem said, don't put the knife down, slaughter this ram instead. That's where we get the shofar from. And we will have to leave the rest if we have time next week. And okay, before we go, are there any questions or comments? Somebody had one earlier and I wasn't able to answer. I apologize for that. Nope. Yes, see, cannot hear. Yeah. Okay, please, if you can't hear, please turn up your volume. I'm sorry I didn't see that. That was quite a while ago. I apologize. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And there's another direct message. Okay, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to focus on the chat and this. That's why I say at the end, I apologize. Okay, everyone, please have a very good week. I do want to tell you tomorrow we have an amazing new class, hopefully amazing new class called Psalms for Life. It's at 11 a.m. Eastern time. It's going to be a half hour. Afterwards, we'll say the daily Psalms, but it's going to be a half hour. Tikkun HaKlal, we'll see how many people there are. It's going to be half an hour. So you can easily fit it into your schedule. Tomorrow's the introduction. We're going to be learning about David HaMelech, King David, and we're going to be learning about why we should say Psalms and what Rebbe Nachman has to say. We're going to jam pack it in. And then at 12:30, we have Breslov lunchtime learning. And that is the call-in, and that will be on holy awareness of God and understanding. And I wish you all a very good week. Okay, everyone, take care.
Yes, sure. Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you. Bye.